Welcome back, travelers, to my channel. We are back in HD. So today I wanted to try out a little something different with how I record my videos because I'm always striving to become a better content creator, better video editor. I really do love editing videos, even though it's a lot of work to do all the extra fancy schmancy stuff. But I always strive to just improve in some kind of way. And a long time ago, I saw on TikTok that there was a way to connect your phone to your laptop if you have Apple stuff. And I didn't have an Apple phone at the time. It's a long story. Mine got lost or misplaced / stolen a long time ago, and I haven't had one since, but I recently got one and I tried it out today, and it was freaky crazy how much definition I was able to see for like the first time ever, because I swear phones today on some level they add like a filter to make you look better, to like smooth out wrinkles and, get rid of age spots or whatever. And I saw myself like truly for how I am today. And I was like, whoa, this is a lot of detail. But we're here and we're trying to make it work. So hopefully everything turns out well with this video and I'm able to use it and get it online, because it's the first time that I'm doing this and I don't want to have to redo this again. Okay, so if you're new to my channel, my name is Stef. I love giving tourists travel advice for when they come to Peru, because I love supporting people in being able to adequately plan for their trips, to have a safe and authentic experience here, and to really just showcase, all the many aspects of Peru to people who are from abroad. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing a topic that is super perfect for me to talk about today. And today's topic is all around problems that you can potentially encounter when traveling here to Peru. If you're a seasoned traveler, you know that no matter where you're at in the world, whether it's Peru or somewhere in Europe or Australia or Asia or wherever, that sometimes you will run into challenges while traveling. Something might happen to your flight or your accommodation or transportation along the way, or you might get sick. There's just so many things that can happen along your journey. And my intention with presenting this information to you today is to just help you kind of be aware of some of the things that you can experience here potentially that can just be little hiccups along your own journey, and by providing you that information to help you to just have that in your awareness so that you're not taken off guard in case any of this happens to you, and you're able to plan accordingly. Number one, the first thing I want to highlight is that every country has safety concerns, and I want to highlight that no matter where you travel in the world, you always have to be mindful of your personal safety, because anything can happen anywhere, right? A mistake that I made years ago when I lived in Europe is thinking that because I'm in Europe and it's safer there, I can relax a little bit more and not be as aware of my belongings as maybe in Peru. But I couldn't have been more wrong, people, okay? I have gotten gypped out of money, robbed of my things in Europe way more than in Peru. And when I have had things go missing in Peru, I don't even know what really happened there. So in Europe, I've had so many things happen to me. The worst thing that I had happen to me when I was traveling around Europe, I was in Barcelona, in Spain specifically, was I had been traveling from a really long bus ride from Madrid to Barcelona. And I was tired. I had like colics or just issues with my stomach, gases or something, but it wasn't really gases. It was just colic. I don't know how to say it in English, but it was really bothersome. I couldn't sleep. So I arrived in Barcelona at like 5 in the morning or something, so freaking exhausted because I had barely slept on the way over there. And so I was tired and I had to wait till like the light was out so that I could go around and, get around the city, go look for accommodation or whatever. I sat down, I had a little bag that went across like my chest or whatever, and I had it like in the front, like the strap behind me and the valuables in front of me, because in there I had my really, expensive $700 DSLR camera along with my passport, the remainder of my money. So I had that on me. I had, my little carry-on suitcase, and I think something else, I can't remember. So I was carrying all of this stuff, right? And I was tired. I was kind of ill a little bit still, and I was just trying to wait, right, so that I could finally get out of the bus station because it was too early to go around, looking for accommodation. Anyway, a man comes up to me. He does the classic thing where he had like a map or something. He came up to me, didn't speak Spanish, and he was clearly an immigrant, and he sat next to me right away. I didn't even invite him to my space. He sat next to me, opened up this map, was asking me for directions in his broken Spanish. And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm not from here, but I think it's around here, whatever, from what he said. And I had taken off my little bag, the little one, and I had placed it in between my legs, right? So he comes over, does this thing. I'm trying to help him out. He goes away. I see him going up an escalator, right? This escalator is like here within my vision. I can look up and see him. And as he's going away, I look up at him and I don't know, he's looking down at me weirdly, and I just like wave, and then I decide, he waves back, and then I decide to get up and go to the bathroom. So I get up and I get my belongings, and then I'm like, where is my little bag? So then I was like, oh my God, this mother effer done stole my stuff. And so I went and I jetted and I tried to find him, and I ran up those stairs or whatever. I tried to find this man. I could not find this man. I went to the police. The police were no freaking help. And I didn't know then that Barcelona was really well known for pickpocketing and all this kind of stuff. Like, I did not know this, okay? Because I'm over here, even though I was living there and I had already things happen to me prior to that, this man got away with my stuff. And I was so upset, distraught, my expensive ass camera, all my pictures, my freaking passport. By some miracle, I had a bank card or some kind of card or whatever, prepaid card maybe or something that had money on it. And it was enough to get me accommodation for the night at a hostel. And I had to go to the Peruvian embassy or whatever to try to get a new passport so I could fly out of Spain and back to Belgium where I was living at the time. And luckily, my family members, they paid for me to get a flight back to Belgium, and I got a special paper or whatever from the Peruvian embassy that authorized me to travel from Spain to Belgium without a passport because it had been reported stolen and I was going to get a new one or whatever. So I had to go through all that process, and I cut my trip around Europe, my traveling around Europe, short because of that whole experience. So this is what has happened to me in Europe, people, okay? And this kind of thing can happen anywhere. I remember I had a friend who was traveling somewhere in Asia, I don't know, Thailand or somewhere else or whatever, and she was traveling by bus from one city to the next, and she had a similar small bag with money or whatever between her legs right here. And you think oh, it's in between your legs and you got the strap around your leg or whatever else, right? But apparently people behind her had gone and crouched down and gotten the stuff while she was asleep or whatever, and they stole her money or something like that, right? So it doesn't matter where you're at in the world, these things happen, and you have to be awake and aware of your surroundings and just take the precautions that you can, right? So I talked a little bit about this in the video that I did years ago around, whether Peru is dangerous. I'll link it up here so you can watch that if you want. In Peru, as in many places, I think in Latin America at this time, there has been an increase in crime. And I don't know what is going on. In the past, we used to just have to worry about getting robbed. And thieves would come up to us and demand our cell phones or wallets or whatever. And if not, maybe they would beat us up. And people would just give their stuff up, and that was that. I don't know what's been going on lately, and I'm not trying to discourage anyone from traveling here, okay? Because this can happen anywhere, even in your own home country. I'm just letting you know that here, for whatever reason, people are now viciously attacking you, regardless of whether you give them your stuff or not. I don't know what's going on, but people will apparently get stabbed or get shot while they're being assaulted and robbed. There's been an increase in kidnappings. I don't know what's happening in the last however many years, 6-7 years or whatever, since we've had an influx of immigrants come in. And I'm not blaming immigrants because I've been an immigrant to other countries, but with more people, and depending on where those people are coming from and the situations that they've had to endure, sometimes they bring certain things that are just not nice. And so for whatever reason, there's been an increase in crime here where now kidnappings are starting to happen. And I remember a year or two ago, apparently some man was found like decapitated in some park or whatever. And I don't remember what happened there. But, there's like more gang violence, I think, happening here. And we didn't used to have that. So I don't know what's going on. But when I become dictator of Peru, we're going to put an end to this because I'm not having this. Okay? Like peace and safety for all. Hashtag Stef, benevolent dictator. Okay, vote for me. Well, as a dictator, I can't really have people vote for me, but I would run for office and just let people know and be like, just letting y'all know, if y'all pick me in this upcoming election, I'm going to be a dictator. I'm letting you know now. Because there's just too much craziness going on around here, and I have had it, and I need to whip these people into shape. So, yes. So, all of that said, my advice from the videos that I did back in the day still applies to today, which is do not carry so many flashy things. If you do have, expensive camera equipment on you, and you're traveling in a group, then potentially because you're in a group, you can look out for each other, keep each other safe, keep an eye on people's belongings. But that's not guaranteed, and it's not for you to relax so much to the point where you're careless too, because you think, oh yeah, I'm with everyone, so it's going to be okay. Like, no, always be awake and alert, okay? Always be paying attention to everyone. Also, even if you're traveling by yourself with certain expensive equipment or whatever, you can still travel around safely, but just make sure those things are concealed to a certain extent. You don't look suspicious. You don't look like an easy target. You know what I mean? Like, some people have nice things, and I like having nice things too, but it's like certain things. Like, if you have a fancy looking book bag that looks like you have expensive things in it, like someone who has bad intentions might make you a target just because of that potentially. You know what I mean? So it's not to say you can't have nice, expensive book bags, because sometimes those are the ones that are the good quality that you want, right? But just make sure, if that's the case, have certain things in place that keep your belongings safe. For example, if you're on TikTok, hopefully by now, if you haven't been living under a rock, you've seen the really fun videos of the lady in Italy who goes around basically unmasking, I guess, pickpockets, or calling out pickpockets. I don't know where in Italy she's at, but she basically goes around and she starts yelling from the top of her lungs, like, pickpocket, borseggiatrici, or whatever she be saying. I don't know Italian like that. But she is so funny. And so something that I saw because I watch those videos from time to time is this girl who has like these special keychains. It's kind of like those, I forgot what those kinds of metal key thingy. They're not key thingies though, but they're like this kind of like an oval, but it's something like that where it's kind of like a figure 8 situation, and it just helps keep like the strap of one thing like tied to the strap of another, so that a pickpocket can't easily like open your stuff and get in and get out. You know what I mean? So you could get those kinds of things to protect your belongings, but even then that doesn't stop all pickpockets, because some people will like cut through your stuff, cut a hole in and grab what they want, and that's it, right? So, but that's at least something that you can do to protect your things, so it's not that easy for people to steal your stuff. But again, always keep your belongings, where you can keep an eye on them. Don't like walk around like this and just like let your stuff swing, or like if you're in a line behind people and just let it hang out carelessly while other people are standing behind you, because again, someone behind you, because of like all the pressure that we're all kind of putting on each other by being in line, sometimes we can sometimes not notice that someone's like messing around in our bags or whatever, because there's a lot of movement and people around bumping into each other. So keep this stuff like right in front where you can see it, where you can easily access it. Keep it on you like at all times. Like, I always walk around and I always have my bag like right here in front of me. I never wear it this way. Like, I just don't do that. I cannot. Because first of all, ladies, okay, when you have your bag like this, you're always lifting your shoulder, and then you just become like lopsided. Like, you're always like running around like this unconsciously and you don't realize it. So I'm not about that life, okay? But also I like wearing my stuff like this because then I can keep it right in front of me, and so I can easily access it. Sometimes, depending on where I'm at, I'll turn things around so that the zippers are like facing me and not like outside. You know what I mean? Like, instead of like this, it's like this. so that way nobody can like open that up. These are just some things that you can do. So basically, keep your eyes on your things and don't let your guard down easily. I had someone on TikTok recently comment about how like I just walk around so casually around the streets of Lima recording my videos and they're just like mind blown that I do this. But that's because I take my precautions, people, okay? I'm not dumb. I'm an Aquarius, so I use my intelligence. So I always look around. If you want to take videos, photographs, whatever. Before I pull out my phone, I look around. I scout the area, like 360, making sure I can see everything that's around me. Based on how I've assessed the situation, then I'm like, okay, I'll pull my phone out or whatever. And as I'm recording and doing things, I'm like so super hyper aware. I don't know if this is just me, but I'm just so super hyper aware of things going on around me that even as I'm recording something in front of me, I'm low key listening to what's happening behind me. Like I have eyes in the back of my head. And I'm listening for footsteps coming up behind me or for cars or motorcycles, because those motorcycle thieves, they be coming up like vroom right next to you, grab your stuff and then go away. So this is why I'm like paying attention, listening to what's happening behind me. And then from time to time, depending on, how long I've been recording or whatever, doing my stuff with my phone, I'll like look behind me just to make sure, everything's okay. And even as I'm recording, like I'm looking at my phone to record whatever I'm recording or taking a picture of whatever I am. But at the same time, it's like I'm here on the phone, but I'm also out here looking at everything in front of me. Does that make sense? So I'm like always paying attention to everything, like right here. I'm listening back here. Can't no one get me. I'm awake and alert, So these are just some of the things that I've done to go around and film and stuff like that. If you're walking around with a group of people, then chances are that you don't have to be this hyper aware, but you do have to be aware of your bags and stuff so you're not carelessly like giving easy access to pickpockets or thieves and stuff like that. And still, regardless, like always just keep your ears like up and alert, because you never know. If you hear a motorcycle coming up fast, like you turn around just to make sure nobody's running up on you or cars or whatever. Like you got to be kind of alert. So it's not to be afraid, because literally I feel so much safer in Lima than I do in Europe. Like Europe is crazy, y'all. Okay, when I've been to Paris, oh my god, Paris be freaking me out so much, especially around the Eiffel Tower with all these people coming up to you trying to like sell you on things, and they're aggressive, so aggressive over there. So if you're from Europe, validate this in the comments below, because you know over there y'all don't play. So you always got to be awake and alert. This is going to be like a whole 20-minute video on my rant on how to stay safe. The intention was to present various things, and somehow I got distracted with the one topic. But yes, things happen everywhere, okay? There are some places in the US that are so super like dangerous, and you really got to be awake and alert. So it's just a different type of like danger, I guess, in every area. Okay, but more or less, you're going to stay safe here so long as you're always listening for any potential stuff around you, okay? You're looking around regularly just to really kind of assess people and make sure that the people around you are okay. You don't see anyone being suspicious, looking at you a little too long or looking at you suspiciously or whatever. And you keep your valuables, visible, easily accessible to you. And also when visiting restaurants, sometimes you might be tempted to kind of hang your bags on the back of your chair or whatever. Don't do this, okay? Because people could be coming in, acting like they're gonna go and have something to eat in this restaurant, sit behind you, see that your bag is left unattended, and when you're not looking, they will do some kind of move. Like I've seen a video where someone kind of pretended they were tying their shoe or whatever, and they ended up putting a coat on the back of their seat. This is the thief, right? They put a coat in the back of their seat. They bent down to supposedly tie their shoe or whatever. Then they grabbed their coat and then moved past the chair of the person that they wanted to steal from, grabbed their bag and kind of concealed it within their coat. Does that make sense? And then they walked away. So be smart. Don't be dumb. I love saying this. I'm sorry, but when I talk to my best friend, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, they so dumb. But I'm not saying this to poke fun of anyone. It's just like we all do that from time to time. We are naive or we do dumb things. So don't do these things, okay? Try to be awake and alert. I done warned you. If you are wanting to hang your stuff within a restaurant, sometimes restaurants have like a little hook underneath the tables that you can hang your stuff under. But even then, personally, I just don't feel comfortable doing that because you never know, someone potentially could like get under the table without you realizing it and take your stuff. So I like to make sure I'm touching my stuff at all times. I'm seeing it. Like, it depends on where I'm at, but make sure you are taking care of your stuff. Chances are you'll have a nice trip. And when traveling from place to place, also make sure that your valuables, like your passport, your wallet, your money, your cameras, whatever, all of that stuff, you are sleeping with that on you on the overnight bus. And then your clothes or whatever extra stuff, you can put that in the overhead section above your seat. But all of your valuable stuff, you are carrying it. It is not going on the ground in between your feet like my friend. You are carrying the valuables with you, okay? Other non-important stuff can go on the ground. We don't want to lose our passports and our cameras and our most important things, because when that happens, that really sucks. I've been there, as y'all know now. Oh, and one more thing, when you're going in and out of banks, just always keep your eyes peeled, because even Peruvians do this, okay? When we know we're walking out of those banks with large sums of money, we still look around before we go into the bank, and we look around before we step out, and we're counting our money away from any visible areas that are like visible to other people. Like, we turn around, and we kind of hide the dollars or whatever, the big amounts of money, and we hide that and we put that away, and then we walk out always kind of paying attention to who's around, because sometimes there might be people hanging around trying to see who's withdrawing large sums of money. And both Peruvians and foreigners are targeted, right? So just be alert. You already know. If you have any more questions, let me know in the comments section. I'm trying to give all the advice that I can remember at this time. Number 2, some other challenges that you might have when traveling to Peru in general is the language barrier, okay? Most of the people here only speak Spanish, although a lot of the university students do have to major in another language, sometimes 2 extra languages, but most people here only speak Spanish. You might get English from the younger crowds and people working in tourism. Otherwise, you need to know a little basic Espanol. So you need to get your Duolingo on, your translation book for traveling or whatever. You need to learn the basics of certain things, right? Like how to ask for a taxi or how to ask for the bill. Or if you don't have the capacity to learn a language, because I know it's difficult for some people, then download apps. There are tons of apps today that help you to translate instantaneously. I see ads about them all the time. So you can download apps that help you to communicate and translate with people. That way you're able to navigate your situation much more easily. A lot of times you will need Wi-Fi for those apps to work, so just make sure that your phone plan gives you access to Wi-Fi while you're here, so you can easily access that and you can navigate any inconveniences that you might experience. Or if you can get a local SIM card from here that gives you internet access, then you can do that as well. And also, speaking of language barriers here in Peru, people in Peru, if they know any other language, it's usually just English. You won't find that many people who speak French or German or Japanese or any other language, okay? There are far fewer Peruvians who speak other foreign languages besides English, but they do exist. You will encounter them here. It's just not as common because English is an international language, so most people, if they know any other second language, then it's only English potentially. But again, you can find people who know other languages. Most people do know European languages more than Asian languages. So it's even a bit more challenging sometimes to find people who know Japanese or Chinese or Korean, but they are around. It's just not as common. Because this video is already way too long, I need to hurry up and wrap it up, people, because I don't know how long my mic's gonna last. And I got other things to do. So the next point I want to make here when it comes to potential challenges that you can experience when traveling around Peru is the weather variations, okay? I've said this before in past videos, but you really need to research when the best time to travel to certain regions that you want to go to during your time here is, because you never know what the weather's going to be like, and now global warming is making things kind of crazy. A few years ago, I remember there was like crazy flooding in Cusco, and people were basically flooded in. There was no way in or out of Cusco, and people could not get back home. They couldn't go see Machu Picchu. So you really have to look into the weather for the places that you're going to and just make sure that you have the best weather possible. On top of that, depending on which region of Peru you're going to, you might need to pack for weather that covers like all the seasons potentially, because the weather can be different during the day than at night. So you need to have sometimes summer clothes for the day, but then winter clothes at night because it gets really cold. Do your best to adequately prepare for the places that you're going to be traveling to, and know that especially in the Andean regions, the weather does fluctuate a lot. The fourth challenge that I want to share with you on traveling around Peru has all to do with transportation here. So sometimes because of the weather, there might be a lot of rain in a certain region, and that might end up resulting in like a mudslide situation where part of the road gets covered in all this dirt, and so buses can't travel from one place to the next because you have to wait for the road to be cleared again so that transportation can operate the way that it normally does, right? So if you're intending on just traveling by bus from place to place around Peru, know that because of unpredictable weather conditions, you might have challenges with that potentially, and you might need to hopefully fly out from one city to the next, assuming that there is an airport where you're traveling to and that the airport is operating without a problem. Traveling around Peru, I'm not trying to discourage no one, but I be speaking truth, people, and traveling around Peru is unpredictable AF. Like, you never know. It's an adventure over here. On top of that, and this is the whole reason I'm doing this video today, is that Peru is unpredictable, like I said, and so you never know when the people are going to go on strike here, and when the transportistas here in Peru, which is the people in the transportation field, I guess, the drivers. I don't know what the translation is in English, but the transportistas, I want to invent a word, transportationist. But that doesn't work. The people who are in charge of transportation around Peru, meaning like the truck drivers that bring in fruits and vegetables and whatever from region to region here to the capital or to other cities, the intercity buses that go from city to city, and truck drivers and other people, right? These people have agreed to go on strike. So there are no buses going to and from cities right now. So if it was your intention to do that, then you're going to have to make sure that you have extra monies to be able to take a flight from one city to the next, because this is what the situation is right now. You never know what's going on here in Peru. And apparently, as of July 19th, 2023, you're going to get this video later, but the people have gone on an indefinite strike. So I don't know when the buses are going to be operating again. It kind of, put a damper on my plans a little bit, because I was planning on going by bus to somewhere else to create more content for this channel, but it looks like now I'm gonna have to take a flight and see that all works out for me. So these are the kinds of challenges that you can sometimes encounter here with the transportation. When I went to the mountains with my brother when he came down to Peru, if you haven't seen that vlog yet, I'll link it up here, but basically we got bus tickets to go from Lima to Huaraz, and we paid $45 to go, and we could have paid $50 to come back, but we didn't catch those buses because we were too late at the ticket office to buy those tickets. So we had to pay like $80 or something to come back to Lima by bus. But when I was researching bus tickets and stuff, I saw that there were other bus companies that were offering the trip from Lima to Huaraz for like 35 soles, right? And so that's good on one hand because it's cheaper. On the other hand, you never know what condition those buses are in, because maybe they're also cheaper because the buses aren't the newest, aren't the nicest, aren't in the best conditions. So you might be taking a bus from Lima to wherever, thinking you're gonna get there, and then along the way, your bus breaks down because the bus wasn't in good condition. So transportation sometimes here is a bit of a coin toss. You never know what you're going to get, if you're going to be able to go from place to place, if you're not going to have any issues from one place to the next. This is why you need to be mindful of that, and you need to make sure you have extra monies for potential flight tickets that you might need to get in case you can't travel by bus from one place to the next. And traveling around Lima by bus is already a challenge as it is, because there is no official like map or system. I've already talked about this in previous videos. If I can find them, I will link them up here. But that's a jungle in and of itself, all right? But overall, basically, transportation in Peru is crazy in interesting ways. You never know what you're going to get here. I'm not trying to make anyone feel bad. I'm still going to take buses. Me personally, I take buses around the city here in Lima all the time. It is what it is. It's just part of the experience. It's part of being here. And I just encourage you to embrace that and to just know that adventure awaits. Also, I have a lot more to say on raggedy ass buses that you take from one city to the next, because I think that needs a video in and of itself. Let me know if you want that video by liking this video down below, leaving me a comment, but I will do this in the near future. The next challenge that you might have when traveling around Peru is altitude sickness. And I talked about altitude sickness in my videos that I did on Lagoon 69 and Lagoon Baron, and I even did a special video dedicated to altitude sickness, so I'll link up the playlist up here for you to go check out. But yes, you might have challenges with altitude sickness, so you really need to make sure that you take it easy when you're going to high altitude places here, because the altitude here is no joke, and you can feel it more in some parts of Peru more than others. So make sure you're in top physical condition and you have medication on you to help you with any altitude sickness in case you get affected negatively by the altitude. Another challenge that you might encounter when traveling around Peru is cultural differences. So I can only speak from my experience as a person who has lived in the US and in Belgium, and even then this is coming from my perspective, because if you ask other Peruvians, I'm sure they'll have a different perspective from me, and maybe we'll agree in certain instances and maybe we'll disagree in others. But what I've noticed personally is that people from Lima are totally different from people from other parts of Peru. And I feel like what I'm gonna say also applies to basically almost all the countries in the world, which is people from one city or one part of the country are gonna be totally different from people in another city or another part of the country. It's just vastly different ways of communicating with one another, interacting with each other, depending on where people are from, right? And everyone's experience is gonna be different. I personally, a lot of times think that because of how I look, I get a different treatment than maybe a Caucasian tourist, or maybe even an Afro tourist or an Asian tourist, right? Because again, we're all programmed with certain beliefs and perceptions about people from different countries, and we have been ingrained with certain things. And in Latin America, there's a lot of colorism and there's a lot of unconscious discrimination and racism, or sometimes even conscious. But personally, I feel like white people, Caucasians, are put on a pedestal, and anything other than that goes lower and lower in ranks. And the darker you are, the lower you go. And so sometimes people will treat me differently when I'm traveling around Peru because I'm brown and I look Peruvian and I'm a woman than some other white looking dude who maybe is tall and has blonde hair, blue eyes, or whatever. Because I hear tourists all the time say like how Peruvians are so friendly and they're so nice and whatever. And I'm just like, are we in the same country? Because that's not the treatment I get sometimes. And also, because you guys know that I'm a spiritual girly, I also believe energy has a lot to do with this. And when I first came down and I was not in the best energetic state, people were really mean to me and cold. And part of that has to do because Lima is a big city, and all major big cities, a lot of times people are in a rush. They're not the nicest. They usually have a bit of a coldness to them, whether it's Lima, Bogota, New York, Paris, whatever. But people from major capital cities a lot of times just are not the nicest people sometimes, right? And back in the day when I first arrived and I was not good energetically internally, I encountered some of the nastiest, meanest, impolite people ever, right? But as I've shifted my energy over the years and I've become a more positive person and I've worked through my things, a lot of times today people are generally friendlier to me than they have been in the past, right? So I just want to illustrate that because in case you have a negative experience when encountering Peruvians here, something that kind of gives you a bit of a culture shock, I just want you to take all of these other factors into consideration. There's so many reasons for why you might not have a nice experience with people, and I don't want you to potentially put every Peruvian under that umbrella based on that one experience that you had, because it could be a number of things, right? Sometimes the indigenous Andean women from different parts of Peru are some of the nicest, kindest, warmest people ever, and they're so sweet and hospitable. And then sometimes they're really shy and they want nothing to do with you and they barely say anything to you when you try to address them, because it all has to do with, you know, just our walks of life and where we've come from, what we've been through, and like where we've been raised and all these different things that make up our personality. So I just wanted to share that. Other cultural differences you might notice here is if you agree to meet someone at a certain time, they're probably going to arrive much later than the time that you had agreed to. People here love to party. They work hard, but they also play hard. They love going out, hanging out, having something to eat, drinking or whatever, because people just really enjoy themselves here. I think Latinos in general, for the most part, are really loud AF. Like, someone always has music blasting. It don't matter what day of the week it is, what time. There will be parties every weekend usually. Like, something is always happening here. People just really love enjoying themselves. So those are just some other cultural differences that you can notice as well. And that might pose a bit of a problem for you in case you enjoy being punctual, or you like your peace and quiet and the people around you are loud as hell. I mean, when I travel on the buses, a lot of times buses are so noisy. Like, the streets are already noisy in Lima as it is. I'm going to do a whole video on that, I think. But on the buses, it's so noisy as well. Like, you have all kinds of activity happening on those buses, and you might not be used to it. I really enjoyed the peace and quiet of buses in Europe. I was like, yes, I love this. Everyone is respectful and wears their earphones and like usually doesn't talk on the phone. But here in Peru, in Lima in particular, but I think in Peru in general, you are going to have all kinds of crazy happening on those buses, on transportations. People will be talking so loud on the phone, listening to their music or TikTok on blast, and you just look at them like, hello? Do you have no consideration whatsoever for the people around you? They clearly don't. To anyone else that has traveled to Peru, or even Peruvians themselves who know what it's like to be in Peru, what cultural differences have you noticed between us Peruvians and non-Peruvians, or foreigners from non-Latino countries? Like, let me know below, because these are just some of the things that I've noticed, but I'm sure there's plenty more. And last but not least, one of the main challenges that you can have when it comes to coming to Peru and traveling around here is the fact that, and I've already discussed this a little bit earlier in the video, Peru is unpredictable AF. And I don't want to discourage anyone from coming. But this is the truth. And I speak truth. I don't lie to your face. I try to keep it real. And so because Peru is unpredictable, our political situation right now is unpredictable. Like, we have had a new president per year the last 6-7 years. I don't even know at this point. Like, we just keep getting new people in, we get them out of office, we kick them out or impeach them or whatever in the world is happening, and we get another one to come in. And this has been the trajectory that we've been on the last few years. And so currently we have a female president who took office because they kicked the old one out. First female president ever. And there's a lot of issues with her. And so anyway, I think supposedly, due to my sources that I have consulted with recently, people around me, about why we're having the protest or the strike with the people in transportation right now, is that in some ways they're demanding certain rights regarded to their work, but also it's like a ploy for them to try to use as an excuse to kick the female president out. And so that way, basically, in a way, they're saying, if you want us to work again and if you want the country to run normally again, you got to get this lady out of office, basically. That's one of the things there, supposedly. I don't be keeping up with the news like that, people. I'm just letting you know what I know, what I've been told by the people who do watch the news. And so this is the thing, is that there's political instability and you never know what's going to happen. So sometimes that makes traveling around Peru like a challenge, like it leads to all these other things, or who knows, like maybe in the future, the president might need to take certain actions in order to get the people in the countries or protests or whatever under control, and they might shut things down like airports or bus stations or whatever, and that's going to happen for a while until things are under control. So this is just where it's at. Like, I think when traveling to Peru, you need to kind of do your best to read up a little bit on political situations here, just to make sure that right now it's okay. Like, at the time that I'm recording this video, over the weekend, I went to go do some research for another video I want to do, and I ended up meeting this lady at this restaurant, and she was telling me about how she actually wanted to stay in Peru a little bit longer, but because of what was happening in the news and the things that she was seeing, she preferred to leave Peru a little bit earlier, because she didn't want to get stuck here in the middle of all of this mess between the transportation people or the president or whatever else, and basically be stuck in Peru and not be able to get back to where she lives, right? So she decided to cut her trip short in order to avoid all of that. Even my relatives recently, they were supposed to go to the mountains, but because of all this stuff, they didn't want to potentially go to the mountains and then not have a way to come back down to Lima. So they just canceled their trip altogether until things stabilize a little bit. So it's good to kind of be informed about these things, because you just never know what could happen, and you got to plan accordingly so that you're not negatively affected by any political drama that's happening here in Peru. Okay, this has been a really long video. I really hope that this was helpful to you, and thank you for watching and for sticking around so long. I appreciate you. If you enjoyed this video and what I had to share with you today, please give this video a thumbs up, as that lets me know that you got something out of it, that you enjoyed it. Drop me a comment down below on anything you wish to share with me, any insights, any experiences, any questions. I'm always happy to connect with you guys and engage with you. And sometimes you guys inspire me for like new ideas or whatever, or maybe you can request something. And I can do my best to look into that some more, to do a video on that. To stay in touch with me on social media, you can follow me on Instagram and TikTok as Evolving with Stef. My social media links will be in the description of this video. And as always, stay curious, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!